Since Grand Archive launched, one of the most popular characters has been the Tamer Sylvie, and accordingly, one of our most popular requests for deck profiles has been for Tamer deck profiles. Honestly, in the set 1 metagame, Tamer was simply just lacking a little bit. It couldn't stand up to some of the bigger decks, but thankfully in Fractured Crown, we have a lot more tools for Tamer to use, and today I'm very pleased to be able to bring you guys a Wind Tamer deck profile that can actually keep up with some of the top decks in the metagame. It will have a few rougher matchups. You don't want to go against the Wind Assassin deck, not a good fit, but it has a number of matchups where it can put some serious pressure on the opponent, and it is a just overall much more fun, much more potent deck to play. So I'm happy to show you that. Let's jump into our deck profile for Wind Tamer. What's up everyone, it's Dan with Main Deck, and as I said in the intro, I am super excited to finally be able to bring you guys a Wind Tamer deck profile. As we've been working on this deck for the past couple weeks and just getting ready to record the video, I've seen a number of other Wind Tamer deck profiles have been posted, so obviously it's a popular thing. I think those lists have a number of similarities to ours. There are definitely some core things that are being played right now that are quite powerful, but I think you'll find a few interesting differences in our list as well. So go ahead, check our list out, check their list out, see what you like, see what you don't like, build your own list, and let me know how it goes down in the comments below. So without any further ado, let's jump into this. We've had so many requests for this, and I'm super pumped to be able to show you guys things. We are playing Wind Tamer. I will try and make this as brief as possible, but there will be a few interesting things that I definitely need to talk about a little bit. We are running Spirit of Wind. We want 7 cards instead of 6, so we're not playing Serene because we want as many cards as possible. We're playing aggressively. We're playing things to the board. We're going down in card count, so we want to have more cards right away. Sylvie level 1 puts counters on beasts. Alan level 2. Now, Alan is our level 2 choice here because we have no need to go to Terra. We are just trying to play early, fast, tall, strong, aggressive. And in fact, you're not even going to go to Alan's level 2 in a lot of games. You can sit at level 1 and you can win the game there because your things are going to be huge either way. The Alan is really just there for when you need to find a way to get that extra level, or you need to try and dig for an extra card or something. You've got a couple floating memories sitting around and you have the ability to level and get an extra card out of it. So that's what he's there for. He's good for that. But you have a number of ways to get your levels. He's not even that important in the build. So please don't play this like I'm turboing to Alan. I'm going to do that. That's not how you play this deck. Go to 1 and just start beating face. That's what you're going to be doing instead. The next 4 cards are all ways to get levels. Beast Spawn, Ears, Effigy of Gaia, Melodious Flute, Flute of Taming. Of these, Effigy of Gaia is the best one. Beast Spawn Ears is number 2 just because it only costs 0. Flute of Taming, quite good. Melodious Flute, occasionally that Harmonize is going to be useful. Really, ideally, you'd have floating memory to be able to play these things, though, so watch out for that. We need to draw cards, so our Divine Relic is going to be Grand Crusader's Ring. Draw a card. Life Essence Amulet, another way to draw a card in this deck. If your beasts are dying, then you're not winning the game. If your beasts are in play, then you don't need to draw an extra card. So Life Essence Amulet works pretty well for here because if you don't draw a card of it, that's okay because you got a giant thing you're attacking with it. Congrats. Orb of Regret is here because we have a lot of disparate parts in the deck, and sometimes you just need to shuffle up your hand a little bit, see some new cards. That's just the issue with Tamer. Tamer has so many different little things that it needs to do in every game and put together, so Orb of Regret will help you with that. Eye of Argus. Now, in some of our testing, we've experienced actually one of the hard counters to this deck is Assassin decks. Wind Assassin especially has lots and lots of ways to deal with your allies. So Eye of Argus is a nice way to deal with some of the things that that deck's trying to do, especially when it starts playing things like Parsonet and trying to keep things alive that you do not want to be alive. So that extra True Sight can be really nice. Also can just push through damage against Shroud and Mist, against some ways of giving your opponent stealth. Xander level 3. The Eye of Argus will help you actually close the game there. And if the opponent doesn't play stealth and you have an extra floating memory, you can just draw a card with it instead, which is nice. And finally, Nullifying Lantern. You got to deal with fire decks somehow, so having a Nullifying Lantern does help slow them down, hopefully enough for you to get in a giant bear or something and take them out of the game. So into the main deck now. We're going to start by talking about how you're managing levels in this deck. And we're going to start with Develop Mana, which is my favorite new card in this deck because I have not seen this in quite enough. In my opinion, it should be in like every Sylvie list that is trying to play this kind of low to the ground strategy because this is going to give you a level counter, but unlike all of your little things that give you levels up here, Develop Mana can't be interacted with once it's been activated. successfully. So it gets a level counter. There's nothing in the game that currently removes counters from champions, meaning this level counter is just going to be on your champion and permanently increase their level. It's going to make it so your opponent has a very difficult time interacting with all of your gigantic pride guys, and that's going to be really awesome. We're playing 4 of this and only 2 Beseech the Winds, because most of the time, Beseech the Winds is just going to be grabbing an Ears or a Gaia or something. And so Develop Mana does that, but better because they can't interact with it. But sometimes you can Beseech to go to Allen level 2 or to Orb to switch your hand up or just draw a card off of Ring or something. Those are fine too. Your ideal turn 1 play in this game is a Develop Mana, possibly a Bear or something as well. But that Develop Mana is just going to be just such a nice thing to get going right early in the game before you have your class bonuses online, because you have more juicy things to do later on. So we have those in there because you just really want to see it turn 1 more than anything else. And then Beseech the Winds is Develop Mana 5 and 6 a lot of the time. Smack with Flute just gives you +1 level that turn, has floating memory. Watch your class bonuses in this deck. Watch out for your class bonuses, because so many things have class bonus, and when you're level 0, you do not have Tamer class, so be very careful with that. But obviously floating memory, +1 level, does a damage, you know, it's nice. Ordinary Bear, such a nice, powerful ally for the cost, 2/3 for 3. The Pride 2 isn't a big deal, especially if you have played a Develop Mana. Then your bears are just always going to be able to attack when you're level 1, no problem, don't worry about anything. And it is a beast, so it's going to get really huge from things like Young Beast Bonder. So we'll look at that in just a second. Capricious Lynx, another beast. We have so many beasts in this deck, and that's really awesome because by playing Develop Mana and playing a whole bunch of leveling things, you're able to attack with these things pretty fast, pretty consistently. That's really awesome for us. Capricious Lynx, of course, has been extremely good because it gets to ignore its pride the turn it comes into play as long as you have class bonus. Does not work on turn 1 when you're level 0. Yeah, ignoring that class bonus, ignoring its pride, I mean, allows it to attack right away. And by stacking up some combo stuff like playing Young Beast Bonder or with Sylvie level 1, you're not just attacking for 3 the turn it comes into play, you're attacking for 4 or 6 or 7 if you get both of them. Really powerful. That's really sweet. And then you'll pretty easily be able to turn the pride on next turn if you need to attack again. Sylvie can end games really fast if the opponent has no way of interacting with her stuff, so she's going to be keeping players a little more honest, which I like. Green Slime. Now this is such a potent combo card in this deck. The big thing to be aware of with Green Slime is that you want to be blinking this thing as much as possible, and specifically you want to understand how Displace works with Green Slime. I may get comments about this because it does seem very non-intuitive, but I swear to you, this is 100% how this works. Green Slime has an on-enter on an on-leave ability. Now, keep that in mind. Displace says, banish target ally, then return it to the field under its owner's control rested. When you resolve cards in this game, you resolve that entire effect, and then you resolve any triggers that resulted from it. So in this case, Displace will banish. If you target Green Slime with Displace, Displace will banish Green Slime, return it to the field under its owner's control rested, and then, now that it is back in play, both of its on-leave and its on-enter abilities are going to trigger and resolve. The on-leave lets you put buff counters that were on Green Slime on target ally you control, which means you can target any ally you have in play, which currently includes the Green Slime that you just displaced. So that means if Green Slime has 2 counters on it and you displace it, it will leave, come back, it can put its own 2 counters back on itself, and then its on-enter will also put its 2 counters on it, leaving it with 4 counters instead of 2. Very powerful ability to use, but the other cool thing about Displace and Green Slime in here is you can attack with your Green Slime, then you can use Displace or Zephyr or something else to make it leave play, so that you can then move its counters onto your next ally, and then attack with that ally to do a lot more damage that turn than you might have otherwise. So really nice to know these little interactions, because these are how Sylvie's going to eke out a ton of damage on the opponent. We are playing Monkey in here because Monkey is very big and we have the ability to control our level pretty well, so that Pride 5 is not a big deal. Monkey is a very scary card in this deck. Is a solid turn 1 play too, honestly, because later turns, you'd rather be keeping up interaction to be able to save things on your board than spending like all your cards to put a Monkey into play. So you definitely don't mind just playing this turn 1, but Develop Mana is still your preferred one. Bedivere is in here because Bedivere is an animal. So Bedivere works with all this stuff. But that taunt is going to be nice at making it hard for your opponent, if your opponent's also playing a lot of like allies in play and attacking, it makes it very hard for your opponent to attack profitably into things and deal with the threats that they're trying to deal with. And then when they finally do deal with Bedivere, that level 3+ is so easy for you to hit because you should usually have that on turn 3 with something like a develop mana into an effigy of Gaia. Means you'll be counted as level 3 on turn 3, and then that is already active to be able to put a buff counter on all your other animals or beasts when she dies. These last 2 slots, Trained Hawk and Windstream Mutt, honestly, these are like flex animal and beast slots. I don't think these are like, these particular cards are that important to the build. If you have other ones, other animals or beasts you would rather play, you should totally do that. You can also play Menagerie Beast Bonder as a way just to get extra levels, although, we don't find it quite as effective as things like Develop Mana, and sometimes that floating memory is a bit of a liability as well. But just having animals and beasts is good to try and not whiff on cards like your Blissful Calling to make sure you can try and get 2 out for Alan. Trained Hawk has True Sight, which does help it sometimes being able to deal with things that are stopping you from dealing damage to your opponent, like Shroud and Mist or Innervate Agility. Windstream Mutt can sometimes put a counter on stuff, but the deck runs a lot of norm element stuff, so it's a little tricky. It doesn't always do that, but when it does, it's pretty cool if you can line it up. So I think you can totally like swap these out for any other animals or beasts that you would prefer to run in here. Or you can go 3 of 1 instead of both of them. You can just kind of do whatever you want. But yeah, I think the idea here is just keeping our animals and beasts a little bit higher. Young Beast Bonder, as we knew from Dawn of Ashes, was one of the best cards in Tamer then, and it continues to be one of the best cards in Tamer. It's even stronger now with Displace, allowing you to use it to really massively buff something up very quickly and deal a lot of damage to your opponent. And that floating memory is nice as well. Dream Fairy is a card that I think a lot of Wind decks are going to start picking back up again, because currently in the metagame there is a lot of play to board, a lot of allies, and Dream Fairy is really good at dealing with those, and especially in a metagame with a lot of Merlin decks that are trying to end the game with Incarnate Majesty and Majestic Spirit. Dream Fairy is very good at dealing with big problematic endgame stuff like Majestic Spirit and Crawl. Dream Fairy just gets around all of their ways of protecting themselves and then forces them to have to like replay the card in an annoying way. So Dream Fairy, really solid, even though it's not a tamer card, an animal or beast, it is still really good to play. You also are, since you're playing Displace and Zephyr, you can really kind of blink things down and annoy your opponent at instant speed with the Displace in particular. So that can be quite nice too. We already talked a lot about Displace. I think you understand what this does in here. It's going to do shenanigans with your counters, and it's also going to be used just to protect things like your monkey from your opponent. When your opponent goes all in to try and kill him, you can just save it by displacing it in response. Zephyr is a card that you can use for all of those cool shenanigans, but it is probably best saved to deal with your opponent's stuff. Suppressing allies or regalia, just like Displace can do as well, can get rid of Interceptors for the turn, or get rid of attacks that would be lethal on you. Save yourself a little bit of time, including, in this case with the regalia, being able to target like your opponent's effigy of Gaia if they're playing Tamer also to shut down their pride for the turn. Zephyring a sword to prevent them from having enough damage with one of their giant attacks, or Rending Flames or something, prevent them from killing you with that. Obviously, a lot of useful things you can do with this fairly flexible card. Favorable Winds. Card is so good in here, just protecting your allies. We're gonna have another card like this that's going to just be used really for protecting your allies. And when your opponent is trying to commit a bunch of attacks to deal enough damage to kill something, they'll walk into this Favorable Winds a whole bunch, and you're gonna get some sick value from it. So awesome card to have in here. Blissful Calling is a melody, so Alan can pick this up, and it looks at your top 5 to find an animal or beast. Great turn 1 play, especially if you're just trying to be conservative with what you're banishing when you're leveling. Just be careful that there's a lot of there's water running around now with the play Chilling Touch, and if you only put 1 card down in memory on your turn because you're trying to be all cool and only banish that exact card when you level, they may stop you from leveling entirely. So just be aware of that. But solid card in here, and it turns on our Harmonize. Steady Versus in here, like pretty much specifically just to turn on Harmonize to keep us at a threshold where we have like hopefully enough harmony and melodies so that when you do go to level 2, you can try and find one and not have the worst odds in the world. Steady Versus is just nice because it's quite cheap. It costs you 2, but it makes the next harmony or melody cost 1 less, which means both of these are only going to cost 1. So you're talking about a turn where you play these 2 cards from hand, you pay 3 cards, you draw 2 cards back, 1 into memory, and then, well, if you're doing Empowering Harmony, you draw 1 card back from that. So it's kind of keeping you neutral on cards doing that route, and it's not costing you very much to do so, and you get all the you get the benefits of digging through your deck more and getting either the levels from Empowering Harmony or Anthem of Vitality is, I mean, this is actually, the big thing about this is Harmonize is nice, but it's not critical. Like, you are okay playing these without getting Harmonize, unlike, you know, playing Erupting Rhapsody in a fire deck. Anthem of Vitality itself is just a nutty card that is going to add health and give Spell Shroud to an animal or beast. So when your opponent, again, is going all out to try and destroy your, like, gigantic green slime, your gigantic bear or something, Anthem saves it from 99% of the effects in the game, which is really awesome. If you can get that Harmonized, then those 2 buff counters are going to probably, like, help you get to lethal damage on board or something. So very, very solid card. There's a reason this one's at 4 of. And then you have both Steady Verse, Blissful Calling, and then you have Melodious Flute also to try and get that Harmonized turn on if you need to, if you want to. But just saving cards like Anthem of Vitality, Favorable Winds, and Displace in hand will give you so many outs to dealing with so many things that are going to be threatening your bear or your lynx or your green slime, whatever you're trying to protect, and give you the time you need to bash in your opponent and win the game. So that's the basics of the deck. Level your champion up, play your animals or beasts, make them absolutely huge, combo your young beast spawner, displace young beast spawner, displace green slime, get counters all over the place, and just bash your opponent as fast as possible is exactly what we're doing. Now, sideboard, of course, is going to be dependent a little bit on what your metagame is like. I'll just go through a quick list of what we currently have in here, but Viridian Trinket, because cards like Shrouded Mist and Revitalizing Cleanse can make it a lot harder to get the win on the opponent. Frostbind can be very obnoxious when you're running very low on cards. This can just really stymie water decks quite a bit if they don't have that Fracturize available, and they're going to be spending their Fracturizes probably on your level up cards. So it can be a fairly safe card to play in the water matchup, very strong. Tithe Proclamation, obviously super good against Rye. Sometimes pretty good against Lorraine decks as well. On enter draw card, this is the really cheeky thing with this card that some people are just starting to realize now, is that Zephyring this allows you to draw a card if you need to, especially if the opponent goes to, like, Spurn to Ash it, and you go, in response, I'll Zephyr Tithe Proclamation, negating your Spurn to Ash and then drawing me an extra card when this comes back into play again. That can be pretty cool. Now, if they'll have the turn to go off on you, which might be unfortunate. It's probably, they might still win from that, but it's cheeky. It's kind of fun. Beastpawn Boots isn't just another kind of like anti-Rye tech, anti-Merlin tech to give your champion Spell Shroud until end of turn. But Innervate Agility is the one that I think is the most... In fact, I would consider some of these main board as well if you want to, because it's so good, and in this deck, you can level back into Allen level 2 and get to potentially draw another card from that, so he kind of mitigates the drawback a little bit. But the key thing about this is giving your units Stealth or Spell Shroud can completely save you from getting your board wiped from attacks, at least. It means your opponent just can't profitably attack into your board of things that turn. The Spell Shroud is can prevent them from single target things, but keep in mind that board wipes do not target like Anger the Skies, so Innervate Agility doesn't stop that from saving them. Doesn't save them from that. And finally, we have a couple copies of Veiling Breeze in here, and Veiling Breeze is all right. You know, it does a decent job at preventing some damage, although I think a lot of the time this Tamer deck just runs a little too low on cards to really be able to take advantage of it, and a lot of your cards are Norm Element, so you're not always going to get that key defense that you're looking for. But it's all right. It's an option, and if there's other stuff in your metagame that you need to tweak for instead, I would definitely say go for it. Put some other interaction cards in here as well. Resolute Stand or something if you need to prevent things that way. Or Bestial Frenzy is a really great card to play in here as well if you are seeing a lot of go wide decks, because you will definitely be able to cleave a lot of damage with Bestial Frenzy if you play that against the right matchup. So I would maybe consider just swapping those out for Bestial Frenzies instead, but definitely consider it if you think it's a card that would be useful to you, just like any other sideboard card. So that's the Wind Tamer list. I hope you guys enjoyed checking that out. I hope it gives you some ideas. This has been a lot of fun to play. It is a deck that definitely can pick off wins against some of the stronger decks in the metagame. We've seen it win against Fire Lorraines, Wind Lorraines, Rye decks. It's able to just kind of crush a lot of those. Has a little bit more trouble with Wind decks in particular, just because those tend to blink you in the wrong way when you're trying to blink in the right way. And that can be a little bit troublesome. But yeah, I mean, it's not a deck without bad matchups, that's for sure. But it is a deck that is now quite a bit more playable than it was in set 1. Quite a bit more fun, very potent in the right situation, can be very fast, very strong, and very obnoxious to try and deal with. So definitely give it a shot if you love the idea of Tamer and love the idea of like playing gigantic things and crashing with them. Very fun deck for that style of play. I would love to hear in the comments below what you think of this deck, what other decks you'd like to see profiled. We'll continue to toss out deck profiles here going into Ascent. I think a lot of our earlier decks here are going to be a little more straightforward, easier to play, easier to pick up, and we'll start getting more nuanced decks as we get closer to the end of the month, as the main deck team is doing a lot of testing right now for Ascent as well, and we are happy to provide you guys everything that we are learning as we are picking things up here too. But this is our first draft of a, well, not our first, but this is our current final draft that's going to continue to be iterated on for a Wind Tamer deck. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching another Main Deck video. You can support Main Deck by shopping at tcgplayer.com using our affiliate link. Check the description of the video for details. Main Deck is sponsored by J-Dubs Sports Cards and Gaming. Visit jwwcards.com and by our amazing patrons. Get exclusive content and other cool perks on the Main Deck Patreon. And hey, while you're here, I bet you'd like one of these videos. Go ahead, click one. I know you're gonna love it.